Welcome to Cold Cans. It's episode number 96. And as we're 4 away from the end of this thing, we thought we'd finally bring on someone who knows something about alcohol. That's right, folks. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Zach Geballe. He is a sommelier at Seattle's iconic Dahlia Lounge, which is the flagship restaurant for Tom Douglas. He is also the wine educator for the Tom Douglas Group. He's a freelance wine and spirits writer, and he's the host and producer of the podcast Vine Pair. Zach, thank you for being here today.
Look, you promised me you'd give us free studio time if I did this, so
we'll edit this out. Cut that.
So I'm here, sharing a beer with you guys.
So this is officially SpawnCon then. If
we can't be bought,
it's
the opposite of SpawnCon.
That's right.
We're
losing.
You're
yeah.
spawning my con. Which now
you
that
really
I say
bungled
that,
this one.
Which now that I say that sounds even dirtier than it sounded in my mind.
Okay.
I don't want to spawn
We
anymore.
need the double explicit tag on this
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, I didn't even realize I had that. Well, look, I felt obligated as someone who is both a drinker, a podcaster, and God help me, a listener to Cold Cans. I would say I haven't applied for my citizenship in Cold Cans Nation yet. I've heard that the test is not pleasant, but
we built the wall.
Yeah, but what
The
can I say?
paywall.
You guys have you've extended my visa a couple times, so I'm here, and I'm going to share a beer with you. And you don't know what this beer is, which is, I know, again, breaking with
mystery,
Cold Cans
yeah.
precedent. But should we reveal? Is it time?
Let's do it. Let's get it
Okay.
out of that bag.
I'm bubbling.
It's in the brown bag.
Instead of a drum roll, we're just going to have the sounds of me rustling with a brown paper bag, which is really the appropriate sound for beer generally.
Yeah,
It sure is.
It's some
So
ASMR stuff.
Yeah, we'll put it right next to the mic.
Oh God. Cold Cans Nation had to pull over as they were driving.
Yeah. So the beer I've selected for you today is a hugely important beer in my development as a drinker.
Nice.
Delirium Tremens
Delirium
Belgian.
Tremens. You go, Nick.
from the brewery whose name I will not, well, I'll try and pronounce and we'll get wrong. I believe Hai is about as best as you can do. I don't speak Flemish. I'm sorry. And yeah, so I will give you the extremely brief backstory on my experience with this beer. When I moved back to Seattle, I grew up here, unlike you, central Wisconsin.
Hey, watch it.
Jamokes.
You're never getting into Cold Cans Nation.
That's okay. If it's located in central Wisconsin, I'm okay with that. It was when I moved back to Seattle after college. There was a bar near where I lived called Uber. Before Uber was an app, it was just a bar.
Mm-hmm.
We could have actually used the app after going to the bar, frankly.
Wow.
One of the things they were famous for in Seattle was they were the only bar in Seattle at the time that had this on draft. And at the time, Delirium Tremens was sort of one of these things that was fabled, but very, very hard to find, at least in Seattle. I think probably if you were in bigger cities, you might have been able to find it. But Seattle 13 years ago was a different place than it is now.
Sure, yeah.
And it was it was an experience for sure. My roommate at the time and I would go there pretty often and drink a couple of these and then somehow get home. And yeah, I'm excited, I guess, to share it with you.
Hell yeah. One more time.
I feel a little
I
dirty.
can't
One more
wait.
time, the name of the beer.
Hey, is about as good as I know. But yeah, that's what I got. We'll see what you guys think.
I'm afraid to spill any of it.
Now pour this into a glass like a civilized person.
Wow.
How does it look?
Well, look at it's a very
Beautiful.
light color palette.
Oh, see, I would call this beautifully golden.
Yeah. Well, I think I expected something else. I mean, I guess
You think it was going to be pink because it's got a pink elephant in it?
yeah, and like with blue. No, I think all I've had in terms of Belgian beers are Belgian triples, which have a different, obviously, color palette.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I'm treading into dangerous territory of acting like I know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Uh-oh. Wow.
I'm getting out of that tub.
Backpedal.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I promise you guys, this is not going to be a technical dissection of this beer.
Well, if you have it, we certainly would love to be educated, but
Yeah.
I think we should try it.
So
Yeah.
when was the first time you had this beer? Do you remember?
I'm going to guess, well, let's see here, probably July of 2006. Something
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
Wow. Ooh, wow.
Wow, yeah. That
That's
tastes
smooth.
good.
Yeah, this is what good beer tastes like. It
Not
took
that
us
you guys would
96
know.
episodes to get here.
Now,
We got a lot of making up to do.
Zach, you had a bit of a struggle finding this beer in Seattle. Tell us the story.
I did. Well, so, in true Cold Cans fashion, I didn't do any preparation. Those of you who have listened before may be aware of my stance on this. And I just figured, well, it's a pretty well-known beer. Where you guys record has lots of fancy grocery stores nearby. I'll just pick it up, right before what I've been led to believe is cold cans fashion.
Yeah.
And the local grocery stores, lots of other Belgian beers, but no Delirium Tremens. And
Really?
so I had to hike all the way to an actual dedicated beer shop. Trekked all the way down there and back, just for you guys.
Chuck's Hop Shop,
And
fan of the show.
Really?
Yeah. And
Oh, I love
down to
Chuck's.
Chuck's. And
Shout
and
out to Chuck's.
I actually, in fact, had to call in advance because I didn't want to walk down there and find out they didn't have
Well,
it.
yeah.
And they had it in both bottle and can, and I figured, well, it's cold cans, not cold bottles. So
Bet
here
your
we go.
ass. Wow.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you for
Cheers
bringing
to
it
that.
on. It is delicious. We're going to dissect it as we dissect your life and work.
Oh goodness!
Yeah. I'm glad
I
you
better
said
drink
your life, not you. Our lawyers were on the edge of their seat when you were.
Yeah, this is definitely not a sterile operating room.
There's a whole cleaning crew that comes through here twice a day. Don't give it to me.
A whole cleaning crew of you.
Yes. So Delirium Tremens, when you first Google it, it says Delirium Tremens, or DTs,
Oh yeah.
is the most severe form of ethanol withdrawal,
Wow.
manifested by altered
Really?
mental status and sympathetic overdrive, which can progress to cardiovascular collapse. So this is named after
Yeah.
alcohol dependency or something.
Well, what I liked is it's probably the original beer named after something that can kill you.
okay.
I think
Yeah.
that's kind of come in vogue of late. But yeah, one of the things that appealed to me when I first started drinking Delirium Tremens is that Delirium Tremens is basically what happens when you are a very severe alcoholic and you stop drinking and you can go into withdrawal and die.
Wow. That's dark humor.
Yeah, it's not even
Dark
humor.
tongue in cheek. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
it's
even
just
humor.
dark.
So
That's
it's
kinda
just
where we're going
dark.
here.
That's
Unlike
where
the beer,
brewery went.
it's dark.
Yeah.
wow.
Especially in contrast to the pink elephant on this
That's what I was thinking.
sky blue colored can.
Well, I think the pink elephant is maybe a reference to what maybe someone suffering from Delirium Tremens hallucinated.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Oh. So they
Like I said, I didn't really do any research.
sure. But I mean, good.
Fit right in. It's like that citizenship in Cold Cans Nation is going to come right
Back
along.
online. Yes.
Although most of Cold Cans Nations are residents of Central Wisconsin, so
That's true.
it's going to be a rocky start.
Yeah.
Though you have a connection to Central Wisconsin.
True. My wife is from Central Wisconsin. That's
Hell
really
yeah.
the only reason I listen to you guys.
Yes, we have such a narrow niche of people whose significant others happen to be from Central Wisconsin, where they give us a chance. That's basically our listener base at this point.
Yeah, we have 3 listeners.
Well, Central Wisconsin has literally thousands of people living in it.
Yeah,
It does.
dozens of people
Yeah.
per county.
Well, most of them are still there, so
Yeah.
the people who have expatriated are limited. But
Yeah. Have we never brought up that you expatriated? Nick Patry?
I know that I said it,
Nick's-
and I was
Nick
like, I feel like these guys
expatriated.
are
I
not
was
appreciating.
I wasn't going to bring anything up
Wow.
about it, but yeah, that's fun.
We're having fun now. If the beer wasn't, we are. So
I mean, if you ever got married and decided to take your partner's name,
Uh-huh.
you could be expatriated.
yeah.
Just something to consider.
That's good stuff.
I mean, I
if
will-
I
I will
wasn't
say-
such a traditionalist.
I will say to
And,
say something. Unfortunately, to say something complimentary, which I didn't want to do, but
yes,
but there was a conversation that I had with my wife that did involve Nick's relationship status, which you don't have to
Ooh.
reveal on air, but
Wow.
but we hear lots about
Joey's wife.
My wife.
That's true.
So
I'm also
it's a-
married to Joey's wife.
Oh.
That's the reveal.
Well, there you go. So
No,
you
I'm
could
kidding,
easily
Devin.
just be Nick Glock.
Yeah.
Nick Glock. That's a strong name.
That's super strong.
Double hard K.
I'd actually be afraid to be in the studio with Nick Glock.
I want to shift to Joe Glock for the same reason. We could be Joe Glock and Nick Glock.
Yeah, I call you
You're
Joe
gonna
Glock
fuck with
all the
those
time.
two.
No, Joe Glock's
Yeah.
a strong name.
Why? But I'm too much of a coward. I can't fit that name. Joey Glock is more accurate.
I feel like Joey Glocky actually would be better.
Joey
for
Glock.
you.
People call me that because
Yeah.
I have an E on the end of my name.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
I did some research on that, not on the
Wow.
beer, but on you guys.
Well, that's good.
Wow.
What did you dig up? Our
Uh,
lawyers just stood up now at the end of the
Yeah, I
room.
was gonna say you thought the dissection was gonna go badly. No, I think basically all I found out so far is that I believe you both were born in the same room.
Yeah.
in central Wisconsin. One of the few rooms in central Wisconsin.
It's the hospital. It's
yeah,
just one room.
It's hospital room. Sorry,
Yes.
I should have been clear. And have been inseparable since birth.
Yeah, physically.
And yeah, well, no, that surgery was a success. And actually, that's all I've got.
Wow. That's more than I think I knew about myself.
Yeah.
Certainly more than I thought the internet had on me.
We're uncovering some things here. Yeah.
Oh,
thought it was
I
off the
hired
grid.
someone. This wasn't internet.
Oh, okay. Private eye? I
Well,
hired,
you know,
that VinePair podcast has a bigger budget than I thought. I'm hiring private investigators
Look,
for you to do some SpawnCon. with
labor
them.
is cheap in central Wisconsin.
labor's cheap to produce a podcast, too, when you're, when you're hiring producers like you guys. You don't. You have great producers. Nick is great.
How dare you?
I love him. I hired maybe the same private eye to do some research on you.
Here we
And
go.
I found a couple of things. Well, actually, Nick kind of spoiled the thing at the intro, but you're a sommelier.
I am.
Okay. So once you became that, was your first gig as a sommelier at the Dahlia Lounge, or did you have to like go up through the ranks? How does that work? Because the Dahlia Lounge is kind of like the pinnacle of Seattle. I don't want to say the pinnacle of Seattle dining, but it's like when I think of iconic institutions to eat and drink in Seattle, the Dahlia Lounge is right there. Tom Douglas. So, what was your story to get where you are?
Oh my goodness.
My private eye did not do a good job. So I need to hear that.
What I will say is on a rare moment of seriousness. Sommelier as a title is one of these things that is like in the eye of the beholder a little bit. In that, like, it's a job, and so you can be hired to do the job because someone needs you to do the job. Kind of like a podcast engineer.
Sure.
And so my first sommelier job, I guess it is fair to say it was at Dahlia Lounge. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I have worked for Tom Douglas restaurants for a very long time, over 12 years, and in a lot of different capacities. But yeah, I found a lot of fascination with wine, but also just beverage alcohol generally, and I just have kind of oriented my career around it, which is kind of cool. I didn't necessarily think that was what I was going to do when I was a fresh-faced youth like you guys, but that's how I ended up.
Nice. How did you like get into that space, other than the fact that we all like to drink? Well, how did you get into kind of the academic side of it, or I guess professional side of it is probably a better word than academic?
It's a little bit of both. I think the answer to that is part accident, in that, like, for me, working in restaurants has been a part of my life for a really long time. But I'm also someone who really finds a lot of I just like to know stuff. And so that's not why I listen to Cold Cans, but it is why I do most other things. And
jab in there. Nice.
Oh, I mean, I'm being paid per Cold Cans insult as far as I've been told. Not by you guys. Again,
Nick, you negotiated a
no,
goddamn bad deal.
That VinePair budget, baby. And so for me, part of it was learning more about wine, beer, spirits, etc. was a way to continue to engage with the part of me that enjoys learning while still also having an actual practical application. And part of it is, it's a great subject to learn about because, I mean, it's the same reason you guys do a podcast about beer, because fuck, it's a lot better than doing it about something boring that you don't get to enjoy.
Yeah.
I could have gone to school, and I mean, I did go to school, and I could have decided that, at 23 or 4, I was like, I need a career direction, and, gone into whatever the hell subject matter would have paid better, because frankly, this one doesn't necessarily pay great. But, it is,
We're making thousands off of every Cold Cans
nice.
episode.
Nice.
Yeah, we get paid great. So
Well, I need to talk to your lawyers. Jeez. I mean, they're right there. So
They
I
are,
will.
yeah. They'll talk to you after the show for more reasons than that.
Well, I have one last follow-up. I didn't mean to cut you off. I have one last follow-up, which is, did you find that deeper understanding of wine, in your instance, enhanced or in some ways kind of took the magic out of the thing itself?
This is like way too incisive a question for this podcast. God damn, man.
Well, I could give you my personal experience, which is I am in the technology world, and I loved technology. I was fascinated by it and enamored with it my entire life as a kid, and I wanted to take everything apart and figure out how it worked. And then when I kind of went out and studied it and now deeply understand how it works, I have like this resent toward it. It went the other way. But technology is not art in something good like what I would consider wine, but...
Yeah. So I think the answer to that is I was in school in college for sports journalism. So that's something that I know
We
Nick
have
and
that
I
in
share.
common, yeah.
And to me, that's what I was worried that sports would become for me. I saw a lot of people, a lot of my friends who were a year or two older than me, a lot of the professional journalists and broadcasters that I met, that I interned with, all were super jaded about sports, and not in a necessarily in an unreasonable way, but I'll tell a brief story. And I was at a Mets game because I went to college in New York, and I was there on sort of tailing along with the New York Daily News beat reporter for the Mets at the time, and it was September of 2005. The Mets were in the middle of a really tense playoff race. And it was super exciting, we're at the stadium, and I'm a baseball fan. I'm not a Mets fan. God help me, I'm a Mariners fan. But still, you get excited. It's fun. You're in a stadium with 45,000 people who are desperately rooting for their team. And I remember being there, and the Mets had this sort of dramatic come from behind win. And I was like, this is awesome, right? Like, what could be better than doing this professionally? And I just remember the guy I was there shadowing was just like, shit, I got to rewrite my game story.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like this whole thing where, I understand it from his perspective, especially now. I'm a parent, so I understand it. He had a wife and kids at home, and instead
And a
of
deadline,
being,
yeah.
and deadline, and I understand, now being instead of being almost done with my day's work, obviously it's a late night no matter what. You have to, go get quotes, but you already have the structure of what you're writing finished,
Right.
and you can file on time. Now it's I got to rewrite this whole thing. Yeah, it's great, but it's a lot more work for me, and instead of getting home at maybe midnight, I'm going to get home at 2.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the kids wake up early regardless of when you got home from work. And so for me, sports was that. It was a thing that I realized at that point, if not before, certainly shortly thereafter, I really enjoyed sports at that point. I thought that's the form of journalism and field I wanted to go into, and I'm extremely glad I didn't, because now I'm not nearly a sports fan I used to be, but I can still enjoy it as a fan. I don't have to work it. And for me, it's actually been the opposite with alcohol. The more I've learned about it, the more I enjoy it. I think because all of the stuff, the stuff that the beer, wine, spirits at a certain quality level rewards you for learning more about it. In some ways you are better suited to understand why things taste the way they do, understand maybe what sets good and bad apart, or good and great apart, and not necessarily from an individual taste perspective, because I don't think you need to have professional training to understand I like this and I don't like that. That's totally valid.
Sure.
But from a more objective place, learning more about it allows you to have a greater understanding of, in my opinion, what makes Delirium Tremens say a great beer compared to other comparable beers that I don't think are as good. And I'm not going to tell you guys get to rate this wherever you want. I won't be offended as long as it's above Sparks. But I will say that it's that part has been endlessly rewarding. And the beverage alcohol world is this really fascinating place where the more you learn, the more there is to learn. And that's also cool. The other thing with sports is in the end, you come back to this place where you go there's so much uncertainty in it. There's so much, in the end, you can know as much as you want to know, but they still play the games. And that's why as a fan, it's fun. But as a professional, it would be maddening to me because at some point you're just sort of well, shit, now they got to actually play the game, and I have to wait and find out whether what I thought was true came to pass.
We have to see whether the dice landed where they landed.
And I had the same experience with sports, and that was why I kind of pulled away from that aspect of it too. It's just so monotonous, and when that is the grind of your day, what you used to love so much, it's not worth it.
Yeah, that's it's the difference between the appreciation and the deep understanding, again, of art and industry. Sports is in and of itself an industry, and so is technology and things like that. But something like how to brew a beer is an art. People who
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's also an industry.
Well, of course, but even art is an industry.
Yeah.
But at the root of it, the thing you're trying to understand is the art part of it. It's not the business part. Well, I'm sure you're also trying to understand the business part. But what your curiosity went towards is the art. It's when I walk up to Picasso, I am affected this way, and I'd love to
You
have
say,
the
how
history
much
and the context.
I must have it.
Yeah, well, and then I take it home, baby. That's interesting. That's really encouraging to hear, and it also to me suggests what is worthwhile pursuing and what's not.
Right.
But,
And so
you guys
after,
could actually now you don't have to feel bad about actually learning something about beer in the future.
yeah, I feel changed. I don't.
we can open our minds. So after all of that, like exploration, what do you find now with all the things you work on is kind of the most satisfying or your favorite thing to do, from the podcasting to the writing to the wine education to being the head wine guy at Tom Douglas?
Nick, I'm doing some soul searching right
Wow.
here.
I want to know. I want to get behind the
I mean, I will say
gourd.
this is like an 8.5% ABV beer, so you're going to get some revelation
Yeah.
here.
Some
I'm already
truth-
like halfway through
It's
it.
truth serum.
Just to put a pin in that, this is the smoothest 8.5% ABV
Yes.
beer
Yeah.
possible. But
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, they do a really good job of masking it. It definitely
Good Lord.
caught up with me in my youth, and
Yeah.
will all undoubtedly catch up with me now in my
Yeah.
not so youth.
That's very
I was
good.
going to ask too, but so you have more time to think about that question. At Uber, were you drinking this on tap or was it in cans and bottles?
No, it was only on tap at that
Okay,
point.
nice.
And they were again, they claimed, and I wasn't necessarily going to go track them down on their claims, that they were the only bar at the time that had it in Seattle. It's become more visible now, and
They've
again,
always been a dirty company, always hiding things.
exactly. Yeah, lots of dirt on Uber. Anyhow, to answer your question, I think, one of the things I love about what I get to do professionally is I don't have to answer that question exactly. I get to do a lot of different things. I've always
Yeah.
been someone whose professional life has been defined by lots of different jobs and lots of different hats. And so I will say, like, I love getting to do the Vine Pair podcast. I love talking. You guys might have noticed, our listeners.
When you can
that
get a
find-
word in with Adam Teeter, that is.
Well, we both
co-host
like,
of
we
the
both
Vine
like to
Pair
talk.
podcast.
We both like to talk. Well, and with you now, because you now open your mouth on every fucking podcast.
That's
so.
true. I got mic privileges now,
know,
baby.
God.
Never giving them back.
That was a
Yeah.
mistake. Whoever
Oh,
opened
I
that
know.
Pandora's
I
box.
think that was my fault. But no, I would say that, the podcast is a lot of fun because it allows, for me, I like to write, but in the end, there is something about talking in that medium of whatever the fuck this is, podcast, audio, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, is rewarding to me. I would say, though, that, there is also something about, and it's funny because in my professional life, working in restaurants, I've spent more or less time being really directly customer facing. And I actually sort of relatively recently, in the last few months, decided that after stepping away from the restaurant floor, after my wife and I had our child, that I needed to get back into that, because there's something about the interaction the interactions I get to have with guests that I really love. And there's something about sharing, in particular wine, because that's a lot of what I focus on in that element of my job, is there's something really delightful about it. There's something about it that is not replicable in other settings. I mean, I am someone who comes from a restaurant family and has I guess, just sort of an innate sense of hospitality and likes to share things with people and likes to have people over for dinner and open wine or make cocktails or do whatever. And in the restaurant, it's not exactly that. Obviously, people are spending money. It's not come in and just try this or have this. But there is a way in which when it goes really well, and it frankly, fortunately, mostly does, you get to have this experience with people where you get to say, like, here, try this, have this, and you get to watch directly in front of you someone drink something that they really enjoy. And there's just no replacement for that. And so as much as I love doing the stuff on the media side, and I really do, I don't know that I'll ever be able to give up the direct guest connection part, because it's just so immediately rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, as someone who works freelance and run a business with my buddy here, but like I have very little. You're my buddy.
Wow.
Uh,
We are
very
digging
little-
deep.
/ former Siamese twin.
Oh yeah, we had to talk before the show about how Joey and I were birthed
Yeah.
in conjoined twins, like Matt Damon and what was that movie?
What?
There's a movie where Matt Damon is joined with another person.
We were
Might be
on the
called
verge
Twins.
of finding real substance
I
for
know.
the first time on this show, and
I was
I'm
gonna
Googling
say-
Matt Damon Twins movie.
The need for face-to-face interaction is sort of like in the studio here. Why I like working with you and Adam on Vine Pairs, because I can see you guys, and now that I am allowed to talk on the mic, it's more fun to interact rather than just sit here as I have the technical knowledge and I am the fly on the wall, rather than being able to interact and laugh at the same things you guys are laughing at. So I think that's made this much more bearable as a job, honestly,
Well,
is that
that's-
sort of thing.
And that's the there's something concrete to the discoveries you can find about yourself when you're interacting with somebody, both like giving somebody the thing you made, as well as just having a discussion. Whereas if you limit yourself to just kind of the internal monologue, there's nothing concrete ever. Like a thought.
And
that
if there is, it's usually unhealthy. Right?
Exactly.
Like,
You're like a sociopath. Like,
yeah.
if you really firmly believe something in your mind, you could talk yourself out of it. There's room to, but there's something. I completely agree with you. It's super rewarding. Stuck on You, by the way, is the movie with Matt Damon.
And who's his conjoined twin? I feel like
Greg Kinnear.
Greg Kinnear. Okay.
Greg Kinnear.
So he had a
Matt
TV
Damon
career, if not the movie career of Matt Damon.
Yeah.
One of them. Who's had the movie career of Matt Damon? Come on.
So Greg
Not
Kinnear
many.
in this film is pursuing an acting career, but Matt Damon is literally attached to him, and they have to navigate the trials and tribulations.
That's the
therein.
bit. Okay.
Yeah, and there's fun. It's fun.
That used to be on
5.7 out of 10.
TBS all the time.
Yeah.
Well-
We should get to the beer.
Yeah. Let's check in on the beer.
Well, I just spilled it on the table, so we definitely should talk about it.
That'll condition the wood. You're
It really
fine.
actually
You're also-
it really beautifully matches the color
That
of
is
this
nice,
wood.
actually.
You're
sheen.
officially now admitted into Cold Cans Nation. If you spill beer on this table, that's the final.
I
We
was
spill
actually
beer
told that you
every
have to
time.
spill beer on the table and then drink it off the table was really what I was told. I'm not willing to do that.
Well, the last
Our
ingredient
lawyers
is one
will
drop
not
of
let
blood,
us have people do that.
and you're in the nation.
This is between cleaning rounds, apparently.
That's our monthly
so-
cleaning.
Okay, so I think we touched a little bit on like why you or how I guess the circumstances that around you falling in love with the beer. Why this beer for you? Like what resonated and hit home so well?
Well, okay, so that's a good question, and I don't actually have a really well-prepared answer, so I'm going to bullshit right now. I think part of it was just there was something. So 2006, forever ago.
I was a freshman in high school.
Nice. That's not so bad. There were Seattle was a beer town. In some ways, not more than it is now. It's obviously still very much a beer town, but the exciting things happening in beverage alcohol in Seattle were almost all centered around beer. And I certainly like to drink local beers and went to breweries and stuff, but it wasn't as.
So what was around back then? It was like Red Hook, Elysian.
Yeah, like Maritime Pacific. Why am I? It's all a blur now.
Okay.
I mean, there were probably a lot Pike. Those a lot of the real the sort of the stalwarts of the industry were there, but most of the breweries that are now kind of considered the pinnacle of the industry in some ways in Seattle were not around. That all came in at the late 2000s or into the 2010s, frankly. And so there were a lot of beer bars, though. That was more of a thing then, because there weren't a lot of what you see now, which are like tap rooms where people can go. Yep. You can go to whatever brewery of your choice, drink all their beers. That wasn't a thing in Seattle the way it is. I mean, there were some, but there were fewer breweries, and the tap rooms were, not necessarily neighborhood places the way there are. There weren't all the neighborhood breweries the way there are now. And so the beer bar was a big deal. And Uber was definitely balanced between imports and local craft. And I had I'd always loved, I had started getting into Belgian beers when I was in college. But those were a lot of the things that were more widely available. Chimay, I know you guys did one on Fin de Monde, those kinds of things. And Delirium Tremens was not something I had seen before. And then we went to Uber, my roommate and I, because he had heard from a friend of his that it was a great beer bar. They had this beer, Delirium Tremens, on draft that we had to go try. And I think it was part just the sense of discovery, and it was also like, it's still, the bar's still around. It's like this weird little hole in the wall on just off Aurora, which is, for those of you who are not in Seattle, is a sort of the second biggest thoroughfare through Seattle besides I-5.
Yep.
And it was like, all they had was beer. They had no food, so they had a long list of takeout menus. You could order like food delivered there.
Oh, hell yeah.
Again, this is in like 2006. This is pre all the other, pre everything else.
Right.
And so my roommate and I would go hang out there, once a week or something and have a few beers. Sometimes we get food delivered. Sometimes we wouldn't. And it was just, I mean, it's not that all I drank was Delirium Tremens for sure, but there was something about the sense of like exclusivity that appealed to me, that you couldn't find it everywhere, that it was something that was new to me.
Yeah.
And it's also just, I mean, again, you guys can think what you think, but it's fucking delicious. Like it's got this great balance to me of like, there's a little bit of a slight malty sweetness to it. It's got that distinctively Belgian yeasty quality that's not overbearing, but is there. And it's got a great texture too. It sits a little heavier than you expect it to because of the color, but it's not too weighty. And I'm not a huge fan of real hoppy beers. I think, Joe, you and I are probably aligned in that regard. And so it's got this.
No, Joey's the hop head.
Oh, you're the hop guy. Okay. Well, clearly I'm not the dedicated listener you thought I was.
Sorry, keep going. You were on a roll.
No,
this is good.
And so it's just this. It's easy drinking, but not in a simple way. It rewards you for tasting it. It's got a long finish. There's a lot going on there, but it's not. You don't have to convince yourself that it's tasty because it's complex, which I think is sometimes a challenge for me with other beers. Like I like a lot of sours. I like some more experimental beers, but sometimes with them I have to sort of convince myself that I like them because there's a lot going on there, but sometimes it's a little disjointed. This is a really well balanced and integrated beer that still has a lot of sort of dimensions.
And this has been it's sort of tried and true, right? It's more than most sours are like, our brewer just threw this together this year or something.
Yeah, I mean,
and after that description, actually, I was going to ask, like in central Wisconsin, like would someone find this? Do you think is it that widely distributed?
I think it's available nationwide. You probably would have to work a little bit. I mean, obviously, I had to work to find it here,
right? That's why I was worried.
So it's not necessarily everywhere, but I think it's they make a lot of it. I mean, this is not a like niche. This isn't Bat Squatch IPA. This isn't a limited edition. SpawnCon
we just
beer.
got paid more for the little SpawnCon there.
Yeah,
check out Camp Monsters podcast available now.
Oh yeah, it is out now. I gotta download.
Check it out. Yeah, first episode. Next episode's out tomorrow.
And I think it's definitely available nationwide. They make a fair bit of it. I mean, again, to that tried and true thing, I think it strikes this balance. Like I think I have a certain affinity for small production, limited run, try it once and it's gone. Yeah. There's a certain fun to that. Yeah. But I think it's also important to have beers that are really good that are also just always available.
Yep.
And I think they do a really good job of making this beer. I mean, I actually have never seen it in cans before, so it's fitting that it is. I've only ever seen it obviously on draft, and then in they use like a weird ceramic bottle. It's not a glass bottle typically, and so it's. I would bet that someone in, maybe not in the small towns in central Wisconsin, but you certainly can find it in, I think, all 50 states, I would bet.
Okay,
it's
cool.
Distributor. It doesn't say, like, who's the importer and who's the distributor on the can.
I thought it said somewhere in Maryland.
Well, this was imported by BBL Inc.
Oh, BBL Inc., yeah.
Yes.
Maryland. Got it.
Bubble.
21701.
I like to call them Bubble.
They propagate themselves straight up to AB InBev. But this also says Delirium Tremens, beautiful can. We haven't talked about the can. The pink elephant we talked a little bit. Then this like baby
nice
robin's egg blue.
Yeah.
And it says elected as the best beer in the world.
Yeah, did you look
Very
up what
bold.
Did you look up what that was? Is
No,
that
I
some
haven't done the
bullshit
research.
beer cup?
I didn't get
type
my 10
thing?
minutes of Wikipedia time. This was sprung on me.
Yeah. And apparently you've actually been listening to everything I've said as opposed to spending the last 30 minutes Googling it.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree with that take. I like that, like, it's both this utility. It's like a beer's beer. It's not it's not an art house film that you have to, like, sit through and kind of try to sift through, and not everyone is for you, and some of them work and they hit the home run. This is like more of a it's a beer. When you taste it, you're not going to be surprised by anything. If you taste some certain like Northeast IPAs, you're like, what is this like orange juice or is this a beer? That kind of thing. This doesn't have that. You know right away it's a beer, but to me, the sticking point, the reason I love it, is that it tastes this smooth, it tastes this good, and it's 8.5% ABV. We talked about that earlier.
It's hard to believe, really, yeah.
That shows you the craftsmanship. It's not just some watered-down garbage that's like meant to taste good, and I love mass market beer.
Of course,
I love
that's the whole
Americana.
premise of this podcast.
And I really believe that. Actually, kind of want to get your take on that, Zach, but in general, I completely agree. This beer is phenomenal.
And another tasting note, I don't know if... So Zach and I had some tomorrow. Is that what we had?
Yes.
We had some of that.
We pre-gamed this podcast, let's be clear.
A little bit up in the classroom. And I can't tell if that flavor is lingering in my mouth, or is there like a subtle like spiciness to this a little bit? Like,
No, I think there is. I think there's
Okay.
there is like a it's like a little clovey. Like there's kind of a like a warm baking spice.
yes. Okay.
Not to
So I'm
drop
not
too much.
imagining that.
No, I don't think so. No, I
Okay.
mean again, like I said, one of the things I like about this beer is that, and maybe to sort of what you were saying, Joey, like there is for someone who's like whatever, it's just a beer. You can drink this and enjoy it and not think too much about it, and it's not going to be. It's not going to take someone who's a beer drinker of almost any stripe and put them totally off their game. But if you are someone who wants to sort of think about what's going on there, there is a lot of nuance and a lot of different flavors, and so it's kind of a beer that rewards both close inspection and also casual drinking. Except if you drink it too casually, then you end up shit faced, and then you have delirium tremens and you die.
I was just about to say not necessarily a problem until the last few words of that sentence, but like I like the utility of that because as we're just touching on, there are some times I want to be challenged. There are some times I want to sit down at a bar, not necessarily be challenged, but have something of extreme quality, which this has, Delirium Tremens. And then there are some times, and there is a niche for this, and this is our whole problem, our whole beef with Beer Advocate, which is like it's the whole idea of going into something with an expectation. There is a world where Bud Light needs to exist, and it's a world where you're like tailgating and you want to drink 10 beers, and you aren't interested in that moment of like appreciating a given beer. It's like saying like I can't go to cookouts. I do not do cookouts because the burgers that you throw on the grill are not the best steak.
Yeah, and there's no steak
I've
tartare.
ever had in my entire
there's no
life.
steak tartare at your
Right,
backyard.
there's a world for
barbecue.
that, and it's a wonderful world. And then there are sometimes a world to throw a couple of brats and burgers on a grill, and that's my take with mass market beers. There's sometimes a world where you want to have beer, but you don't want to have it to appreciate it. They're worse, but they should exist out of necessity.
Sure. Well, I think also, you guys have tactfully declined to mention the price sticker that is on each of these cans, which also plays a role in this. I mean, this
price
beer
point's a big deal.
These beers were $5.59 a can, which are granted they are 50 centiliters, so a half liter, whatever. Essentially, it's a
Our
pint.
listeners can do the conversion.
It's just over a pint.
Yeah.
And that's expensive.
Yeah.
It's not a cheap beer.
It is.
Right.
And it's it's going to be that may be a little bit more expensive than what it would cost you in central Wisconsin.
Sure.
But it's definitely not inexpensive. And again, I don't my point is not, and I think in agreement with you, Joey, this isn't a beer that I would drink every day for a whole host of reasons.
Right.
And it's not the beer that I would drink tailgating. Although to be fair, it would get you
It would
pretty
work
drunk pretty
tailgating.
quick.
Yeah.
Totally.
Blotto immediately.
But at the same time, like it's a beer that, I mean, you're right that circumstance and context play a role in evaluating any drinking experience. It's true with wine, it's true with spirits, whatever.
Totally.
I think with the exception of basically anything that is clearly so artificial as to be, I think, like not worth drinking in the first place.
Right.
But like, for all the criticism of something like, I don't know, Bud Light is, as far as I know, as best I know, still made with essentially the ingredients that make beer.
It is still beer.
Yeah, grain, hops, barley, malt, and yeast, and like water, and so
then a ton of water.
yeah. And so it's not the if someone said what's the best beer on the planet, I would never say that.
Right.
But what's the right beer for a given moment? It could easily be Bud Light or whatever else. I think Delirium Tremens has more moments where I want this than where I want Bud Light.
Of course.
But there's a time and a place for most everything under the sun, and so
You'll get Delirium Tremens if you don't have Bud Light once in a while.
As soon as you wake up in the morning. Yeah. My heart is warmed that this take.
That's
was
actually just
given.
the beer.
Yeah, damn it. Yeah, it is.
It does warm you all
I
the
was
way
looking at notes. It says that color and sight, pale blonde. The fine and regular effervescence ensures a fine and stable head. Scent is slightly malty and a nice touch of alcohol and spice. Flavor says feels like the sound shot of alcohol is igniting the mouth. In reality, the tongue and the palate are warmed. The taste is characterized by its roundness. I don't know what that means. The aftertaste is strong, long-lasting, and dry bitter.
Is this from Beer Advocate?
This is our good friends
The
at
BA.
beeradvocate.com.
Joey's
Do you want to
BA
reveal
boy.
do you want to reveal what the score is?
This
and all
is
that?
traditionally
Oh,
your world.
sorry.
Are we upending this? Can I do it?
Yeah, Joey, you can do it.
Wow. Now I feel like I'm getting the Delirium Tremens. I don't know how to do this. The score is 93, outstanding, which is probably about as good as it's ever been. Rodenbach Grand Cru got 95,
That was a
world
world
class.
yeah.
Everything else, I've seen some exceptionals, and Pseudo Sue got 4.52 out of 5, which is also world class. So there's probably only 2 beers
Yeah, on our list that have actually topped that.
that have actually topped this beer.
Though there is a beer on this list that bears a place on another list that we discovered.
Wow. Now the
So,
lawyers are ready.
Sierra
I see
Nevada.
them warming their hands.
Sierra Nevada Hazy IPA, hazy little thing,
Yep.
was on number 1 in VinePair's 50 best beers of the year or something. What was it?
50 best beers of 2018, last time they
2018.
did the article.
And we have that at what on our list?
Well, if I were at
Joey, come on.
coldcanspodcast.com
We have it at number
rankings,
9. We have it at number 9.
We have Prima Pils, Rodenbach Grand Cru, Cold Cans Kolsch, our own brewed beer, Spotted Cow, Lagunitas Nighttime Ale, Pyramid Snowcap Winter Ale, which was not bought for that ranking. Pseudo Sue and Deschutes were all above it. And I just want to call out one thing that our lawyers, I mean, they're positively salivating at the mouth at this point. VinePair.com's best beers
Where
of
else would
2018.
they salivate from, Joe?
I guess. Well, come on. This isn't.
They're
that kind
lawyers, man. I wouldn't be too sure.
It's not that kind of show. The best beers of 2018 top 50 ranking looks very suspiciously similar to the definitive ranking of the best 100 beers of all time, which is at coldcanspodcast.com/ranking. So we will be pursuing full legal action against VinePair.
Although I
Sorry
don't
to
think that Cold Cans Kolsch made that list. I'm sorry to say.
Which is a shocker to the beer nation.
My favorite part about, I will say I did listen to that podcast. I think my favorite part about that entire podcast was the general astonishment that you both had that neither of you went blind.
No, it's true.
I mean,
we
beer
were
is
brewing,
really fucking easy to make, but you guys still were really pleased with yourself.
You don't know how little we think of ourselves.
yeah.
We were like, it was shocking how honestly tasty that beer was. That was like a really empowering
nice.
feeling to have.
Yeah.
Man, we need to like get out and we need to do some self-care.
Seriously, you need to find a little more validation in your lives.
Yes, we do. Outside of this podcast.
I mean, not from me, but from someone else.
Oh, damn it. I thought another compliment was coming.
I know.
No,
I wouldn't have been able to take it. I would have
wait.
passed
But
out.
now, see, okay, so I know Nick has some other VinePair related griping
Yes, we
to do, but I want to do a little bit of Cold Cans griping.
Here we go. Here we go.
This is
He's
really,
got his phone out. He's got notes out, folks.
This is really not on my behalf. I think this is on behalf of, again, my wife. From Central Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. So she feels
Sounds
both
like a good
as
person.
if you have slighted Leinenkugel's original.
Wow.
She and my
Or
brother,
putting it-
ZP, would get along because
putting
he
it-
feels the same.
Putting it below Rainier,
Yes. One below.
below Session.
Yes.
Those were a couple that
Session hit number 1 on our list at one point.
below Foster's, which she almost hit me over.
We have it below 5 stars.
Yeah, you have
I don't
Foster's
know.
at 21.
I don't know what happened there.
I don't
That one
know
needs
either.
to be re-ranked.
Yeah.
We might have been drunk on that.
But at the same time, well, I mean, I think that's the point all the time. And then, but also she complains that you have Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy, which in her mind should not exist.
Okay.
At 35.
35.
Yeah.
I think she said she would rather drink a Sparks. I will put this to her in the future.
Yeah, I want that. Yeah,
We'll
taste test,
video
like
for you.
head-to-head taste test.
Uh,
I think
Go ahead.
she made some good points there. I think Summer Shandy, it's fallen off for me lately too. Like it had a place in the summertime drinking in Wisconsin. I think that was the closest thing to
That
like
was
a
it.
refreshing summer beer that I had at that point.
It's such a time and a place that
Yes.
I think that it elicited, again, all of this is just about like, if you're in this
Sure.
specific place, does this do the trick? And Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy, if you're on like a pontoon boat with mosquitoes buzzing around your head, and it's
Even
like,
now though, if you had to choose between a Summer Shandy in that situation or like a Bud Light Lime even, what would you pick?
damn it, it's probably okay. Foster's and Summer Shandy are a little too high on the list. All right,
Those are all good points. Thank you.
she's right on all accounts. God damn it.
I mean, that's what I tell her.
Yeah, well, she actually this is now corroborated across the board. She's right. Foster's, I'm shocked, was 21.
Yeah,
as I was
how
going
did that
through.
happen?
I don't know.
Your Australian buddies also said it was too high, I remember.
I can't be bought. They didn't pay me anything for any of this.
That's actually really depressing. I was
Yeah.
hoping that you got at least to hang out with Crocodile Dundee or something out of the deal.
Oh man, that's the end goal, but it never happened.
Okay,
Go ahead.
now
That's why you started the podcast.
It wasn't
Now
the most
some-
efficient route
Now
to get
some
to Crocodile.
comments from Zach's work wife, Adam Teeter.
Okay.
Can
Can you re-explain Adam Teeter?
So
to the
Adam
listeners?
Teeter is the co-founder of VinePair,
Yep.
the
Yes.
online publication that deals with the spirits and beer and
beverage
wine
alcohol,
industry,
whatever.
beverage alcohol industry. It's a great site. They just started putting out a print publication as well.
Anyone who's listening to this show, and we can't be bought, I'm saying this of my own volition and free will, my lawyers are nodding, would be interested in going to vinepair.com.
Yes.
You could also listen to the podcast.
And you could listen to the podcast
Check out
at
the podcast. It
live.
comes out
vinepair.com.
every
Week.
Tuesday? Monday?
Monday.
Every Monday, VinePair.
Anywhere you get your podcasts. If you can navigate the computer to find the podcasts, you can find it, and you should. Go
Find
ahead.
the podcast. So Adam Teeter often drops some bombs on Seattle. He's a big New York, East Coast elite guy. I don't mean to say that.
I mean,
But
I
he
just
does
want to be
shit on
clear. I want to be
Seattle a
clear.
lot.
Adam is from Alabama.
Enough said. Drop the mic. So I've pulled a couple times that Adam has shit on Seattle from your podcast, and I want to play a clip now and then get Zach's take overall on the man known as Adam Teeter.
Wow.
Here we go.
What's the best pizza in Seattle? I mean, New York has great pizza.
So that's Adam Teeter commenting on pizza.
I feel like this is my new ringtone.
What's the best pizza? I mean, New York has great pizza. So that's a perfect summation of what he thinks of Seattle. It's almost an afterthought.
it's also a perfect summation of the way Adam and I sometimes converse, where he asks me a question and then answers an unrelated question.
Yeah. Well, that in and of itself gives you his answer to that question.
What's the best pizza in Seattle? I don't actually care.
Yeah, New York
New
has
York.
pizza. Yeah. Wow.
So that's one of the least instances of him shitting on
I
Seattle.
know that was actually
feel
pretty
like.
tame. I feel like you got to
I
have
pulled
better than that.
I pulled that in April of this year, so it was a long time ago, and
Yeah.
it finally had a chance to play it, but it wasn't
only-
worth it. Anyway, what would you think would get Adam Teeter to change his mind about Seattle?
Well, he could come here for one.
So he's never been to Seattle?
I think Adam, you can write into Nick
What are
and
the
Joey
chances he
and-
listens to
Avid
this?
listener, I'm sure
gonna
he is.
say I'm gonna say the odds that he listens to this podcast are less than the odds that he. I don't even know where to calculate this.
Yeah, what are the chances he gets to the 45-minute mark of this episode, too?
I don't think anyone gets to the 45
Yeah,
minute
yeah.
mark. I'm going to tell
So
my
speak
wife
your
that she's
piece,
mentioned.
then.
Yeah. So I will say I think it's a fun bit. I don't mind it. It's our shtick, whatever.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Yes.
And I love New York. New York is one of my absolute favorite cities. It's one of the very few places I would consider living besides Seattle. So I'm not going to even play the which is better game.
Yeah.
I would say that, I think there are things when you live in New York that you become blind to about the downsides of living in New York, like the absolute lack of any privacy, the fact that you pay an insane amount of money for no space, the pretty much derelict subway system at this point. It's not necessarily as much fun as it seems,
Sure.
but part of New York, and it's true for a lot of other cities of its ilk, is you are so invested when you live there in the mystique that you have to buy into it. You have to say the $4,200 a month I'm paying for a 1-bedroom, the hour I spend to and from where I work on a subway that takes, that comes 15 minutes late and is
Yeah.
full of people who smell bad, all that stuff. The $22 I pay for a margarita when I go out to drink, you have to convince yourself that it's worth it, because when you step back and look at it, as I did, you go wait, why the fuck am I doing this?
Yeah.
New York is great, but I don't think it's demonstrably so much better than a lot of other cities as to be worth putting up with that. New York is an amazing city if you are really rich, I think. I've never been that, but I've heard. And it's a great city if you're young and okay with being poor.
Yeah.
Because when you're when you're in college like I was, you're fine eating garbage food there's a lot of weirdly cheap food in New York. There's dollar pizza, God knows what's in it or
Yeah.
what it was made with, but it's there and it's calories.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of actually cheap drinks. Again, if you don't care that you're drinking bottom shelf vodka mixed with 3-year-old Ocean Spray or whatever. But it's not a great city if you are not one of those two things, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And that's why I don't live there. One of the reasons.
I think every city is trying to put forth like a message to everyone else and the people who live in it. And like New York, puts forth many things. Like Seattle, I think puts forth the message of like counterculture for the most part. Whereas somewhere like Boston puts forth a message of like academics because it's a college town, that kind of thing. New York is the message is if you want to live in the beating heart of certainly America and to a large extent the world, and you're buying into that, that's what you value and that's a valuable thing, come here. But like I agree with you to the most part. Like it doesn't resonate with me as much.
I'm going to New York in 2 weeks. I'll report back. If I don't see
Where are
Adam
you guys
Teeter
staying?
during that time.
Well, I want to be clear about this because this is an important point to me.
Okay.
So for all the like whatever back and forth between Adam and I about New York v. Seattle,
Yeah.
he owes you a drink. He owes you probably several drinks.
And
After
a White Claw t-shirt.
Yeah. After standing you up in Portland rudely.
He
I
did,
might
yeah.
add.
Follow that saga on Vine Pair Podcast, by the way.
Yeah. I think you are owed a $22 margarita.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Okay. Or what's the like winter version of a margarita that we could go for, and maybe is a little more expensive that Adam could give me?
Well, maybe you could get some as related in a recent podcast. Maybe some like, relatively rare agave, mezcal made from Tobola or something. And you
Okay.
can,
Okay.
or something like that. I don't know.
I'll be sure to
just-
pitch that when I'm there.
Exactly. Yeah. Just or one of the like top 50 beers, whichever the most expensive one is.
Well,
Cold
number
Cans
one.
Kolsch.
Yeah, Cold Cans Kolsch. It would be very expensive because we'd have to rebrew
Priceless.
it.
All right, are we to the rankings
Taking
portion of
this
the
home.
show?
I don't want to spend 30 seconds on a mailbag portion.
Oh, okay, cool.
Super fan of the show at Brooks Maddox said, sounds
Oh,
like
yeah.
one half of Cold Cans podcast is, Jesus, this 8.5% is getting to me. One half of Cold Cans podcast is making their way to Portland this weekend for a beautiful podcasting plus beer event. What about Glockstock? What is he afraid of? Come down from the perch in Seattle, coward.
Yes.
I resent that, but you did go to Portland.
I saw Brooks Maddock there at the Rogue event with Camp Monsters podcast presented by REI, now
Jesus
available
Christ.
on Apple Podcasts and wherever
We
you
can't
get your
be bought.
podcasts. We can't be bought. But I worked really hard on that thing, so please listen.
You can't be Bob, but you can be hired.
Please hire me. Brooks came down. He brought his brothers, Graham and Josh, I think their names were, and their other buddy who worked at Grefson. Is that a brewery in Portland?
I have no idea.
Are you sure Brooks didn't just hire these people?
The guy's loaded.
I believe one
I
of
know
them.
that much.
I believe one of them was one of the camp monsters.
Yeah, he had a lot of hair. He came by, checked out the thing. He was there for the storytelling portion of it,
That's
and
cool.
they got a beer at Rogue, and then he proved himself as a true friend who came
Wow.
to the event.
What a good guy. Fuck you for saying that I'm in my perch, but I do love you, Brooks. Thanks for writing
So
in.
I feel like this means that you guys need to have like a Cold Cans meetup.
We've talked about a Cold Cans
A
summit
summit,
for
yeah,
some
the
time.
summit.
We're going to make a Fire Festival-esque summit where we promise a lot and under-deliver. We also are going to do Cold Cans live shows, both in central Wisconsin and
that's
Seattle.
right.
This is still going to happen. Henry's Tavern.
Right? Is that offer? Whoever's listening from Henry's, is that
Hopefully
offer
it's an
still
evergreen
valid?
offer because we
18
blew it the
months
first
later.
time. All right, let's get to the rankings. This is so there's
of the crop.
the Zach Patry mandated by law, written and contractually obligated that the guest shall not have any impact on the rankings, neither in monetary reward nor in their say, but nonetheless.
Wait. I want to be clear on something. I did not get married to Nick and change my name to Zach Patry during the recording of this episode. I don't know who that is, but it's not me.
That's my brother.
That's Zach's
okay.
brother, super fan of the
Good
show
name.
that got very
Good
upset.
name.
He got very upset that a few people. Oh yeah, I didn't even put that together in my head. That a few people have been on the show. They've been guests, and then we've ranked the beer higher. Then we've later regretted it,
Right.
and we had to do a Power Hour re-rank. But I
Recency
do want to get your
bias
thoughts.
and proximity bias.
Yeah, you shouldn't have had the guy from Foster's on. That was a mistake.
We have 95 current beers in the rankings. I want to get your final thoughts. Go ahead, Zach.
My final thoughts.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I would say that since I chose to bring this beer,
Yeah.
I would be remiss if I didn't say, well, I don't know if it's my favorite beer. That's a hard question to answer, but it's definitely in whatever my personal rankings are. It's right up there.
Wow.
I mean, it's a beer that there's a way in which whenever I have it, it reminds me of things I love about drinking.
Wow.
So whatever. Take that for what it's worth.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm.
Like a time and a place. It reminds him of
Totally.
the things he loves about drinking.
And
That's
it
about as
tastes
good as
good.
it can be.
Yeah.
And it tastes good. Nick? What do you
I mean,
think?
this isn't cream of the crop.
It certainly is. So cream of the
I
crop. Should I read that taint to tip?
Please read it again.
Okay. Cream of the crop is our top 15 beers, which I'll read from 15 to 1. Elysian Night Owl Pumpkin Ale. Optimism Brewery's Before the Dawn, and that was not purchased, even though they were on the podcast. Rotterburger, Bat Squatch, not purchased. La Fin du Monde, Travelin' Like Kolsch, Sierra Nevada Hazy Little Thing IPA. Prima Pills, Rodenbach Grand Cru, Cold Cans Kolsch, not purchased. Spotted Cow,
Also not a Kolsch.
the alliteration was too much to pass up. Spotted Cow, Lagunitas Nighttime Ale. And then 321 is number 3, Pyramid Snowcap Winter Ale, which was provided free of charge to us, but was not purchased. Number 2, Pseudo Sue from Toppling Goliath Brewing Company. And number 1, Deschutes from Deschutes Brewery.
Sudosu was also a gift, by the way. We didn't
God
buy
damn
that
it.
either. Most of this top 10 is beers that were given
Don't
to us.
say it. We're going to cut that out. All right. So, Cream of the Crop, I
I've got a
agree
spot
with you.
for it.
You have a spot for it.
You
Do you
want
wanna-
a 3-2-1?
3 to 1, and then we make our cases.
Okay. Ready?
Wow. Am I going to have to scream into the mic?
Please don't.
I scream into the mic
One way
every
or the
time we
other.
get a new number 1.
Please
All right.
don't.
3, 2, 1, 3.
So I have it above Sudosu because I didn't really like the style of Sudosu. I like this style much better, the Belgian style.
Yep. So Sudosu is the only contentious part. I really, really think Sudosu is an incredible beer.
Okay.
It's an American pale ale, so it's different than a Belgian ale. I don't. Under what qualities? Who could say, really?
My case is this has a third more alcohol than Sudosu.
Ooh,
What-
that's a
what
good
say
point.
you?
So Sudosu is 6.2%, and honestly, very similar in that both beers were extremely smooth tasting, are
Mhm.
difficult to get your hands on, and the alcohol content is a lot higher than you'd think it was if you were just drinking it without any knowledge of it.
Right.
Toppling Goliath, I really like, but I could be swayed. I really, really, this is one of my favorite beers. I mean, we haven't had very many world-class beers,
Right.
as we've documented earlier.
Right. And this is so smooth.
Yeah.
And the high alcohol percentage. I like the sort of twisted delirium tremens aspect of it.
Can
that
I-
it's like a withdrawals thing.
I know you don't want to be influenced by the guest, but can I weigh in here?
Please.
Zach Patri's going to come and find you.
That's fantastic.
Battle
We can
of
have
the
a Zach
Zacks.
on Zach battle. As much as I would love to advocate for my beer, I'm gonna side with Joey here, and
Okay.
here's why:
Wow.
T-Rex greater than elephant.
Yeah. The
Hey, which one survived longer? You know.
I think T-Rex actually.
Damn it.
They were around a lot longer than elephants have been.
Hey,
around.
what have you done for me
Plus,
lately?
we're
You know, what
working-
have you done for me lately?
as humans, we are working on the elephant problem
Yeah.
very aggressively.
take care of that. Both graphic designs are right there, though. I'll
Yeah.
actually bounce that back to you and say I think I actually prefer this can to Sudosu's can. They're right there. I feel so. Do you feel strongly, or do you feel like it's a toss up? Because you
It's
you
just
sound
a
strongly.
style thing, sort
Yeah.
of. Like I like this style better than I like American Pale Ale.
Then
And
I'm in. I'm in with you. It's a
Sudosu
2A2B
is sort of
thing
just
for me.
Yeah, hazy, like sediment-rich beer.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Disparaging to Toppling Goliath.
No, they
Hazy and
mean
sediment
they
rich.
mean to make it that way. I think it's unfiltered. I believe,
I think you've lost.
and
your
I just don't
mind.
like it as much style-wise.
To
Because you
me,
have delirium tremens.
I've been drinking for quite some time, so
to me, this
I'd be
is
shocked.
It's a 2A2B situation. So I'm in with you. This is our new number 2.
Okay, let's
Wow.
do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Zach, thank you so much.
My pleasure, and I
For
feel
coming
like
on the show.
I feel like as long as we beat Findemond, I'm happy.
You kicked the shit
Oh,
out of
wow,
Findemon.
yeah.
He hates Findemon. He wants to drop it completely from the rankings.
When
That's
have
the
I
last time.
said that?
I believe
you
he
so
said
much.
Foster's was better.
Thank you for being on the show.
Zach Geballe. Check out Vine Pair Podcast, new every Monday. Check out his writings on the internet. And if you're in Seattle, go to Dahlia Lounge. Thanks for being on the show, Zach.
My pleasure.